Chess grandmaster Robert James Fischer, popularly known by Bobby Fischer, was an American chess grandmaster and the 11th world chess champion. However, his life took a dramatic downturn after his peak in the early 1970s. A Russian grandmaster described him an Achilles without an Achilles heel. Fischer was famous for being a genius chess player, but he also became known for losing his mind. This video will take you through Bobby Fischer's rise and fall, showing his greatest victories and his deepest struggles. Born in Chicago on March 9, 1943, Bobby Fischer grew up in Brooklyn in a poor family raised by his single mother, Regina Fischer, who was from Switzerland and had Jewish parents. Regina Fischer was divorced from Hans Gerhard Fischer, a German biophysicist, but Bobby's actual father was most likely the result of an affair with her friend Paul Nemeni, a Hungarian Jewish physicist. Regina didn't have enough money to repair Bobby's torn shoes during his childhood. When Bobby was 6, his sister Joanne gave him a chess set and introduced him to the game. He got really into chess because, unlike Monopoly, it was all about skill, not luck. He found it far more challenging, which made it way more exciting for him. His sister lost interest in the game pretty fast, and his mom had her hands full working as both a teacher and a nurse, so Bobby found himself spending hours each day playing against himself. He really liked exploring the many moves and the complicated strategy involved. After a year of doing this, his mom brought him to the Brooklyn Chess Club, where he received lessons a few times a week from Carmine Nigro, a skilled player at the club, who charged him $1 per hour, but Nigro's wasn't in it just for the money. He aimed to ensure Bobby took the lessons seriously, and Bobby did, completely absorbed by chess. It became his closest ally. While growing up, Fischer didn't really have companions. He believed his friendships were only for children with secrets to share, and since he had none, he saw no need for friends. He would spend his Sundays in Manhattan's Washington Square Park playing chess with Nigro, but this did not last longer, as he started learning from Jack Collins, a master chess player who was once ranked as high as number 17 in the US. Collins lived his whole life in a wheelchair. Like Fischer, he never really fit in. He made sure not to call himself Fischer's coach. It would be like saying someone had to coach Beethoven, Shakespeare, or Leonardo da Vinci. He believed Fischer was a genius, like the greatest minds that ever lived. Collins had a large collection of chess books, which Fischer read for 5 to 10 hours every day. This preparation was necessary for him to compete against older and more experienced players. At the age of 13, Fischer faced a 26-year-old Donald Byrne, who was ranked among America's top 10 players. Fischer played with black pieces and Byrne in white. Known as the Game of the Century, this match happened in New York City on October 17, 1956. Fischer's moves were like a deadly art, even sacrificing his queen at one point. He enjoyed shattering his opponent's confidence. Byrne was clearly outmatched. This game brought Fischer into the spotlight, marking him as a prodigy. The next year, at just 14, he claimed the U.S. championship title. By 15, he was the youngest grandmaster in history. Then, in 1972, he faced Boris Spassky of the Soviet Union and emerged victorious, becoming the world champion. This victory was nothing short of extraordinary. The Soviets were consumed by chess, their passion surpassing even the Canadians' love for hockey or the Chinese dedication to table tennis. And yet, from the shadows emerged an American lone wolf challenging the formidable Soviet chess empire. It was a classic David versus Goliath tale. Bobby Fischer, against all odds, outplayed the Soviets at their own game. The backdrop of the Cold War added layers of symbolism to this encounter as the two global superpowers clashed on a chessboard, each move echoing the broader tensions of the time. Yet, Fischer almost missed the match of the century. He refused to travel to Reykjavik, Iceland, unless he received more money and a share of the lucrative TV revenue. It took U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger urging him to get his butt over to Iceland. Fischer finally agreed after a British investment banker doubled the prize money to $250,000. Upon arrival, Fischer was in a sour mood. He performed poorly in the first game and lost. He skipped the second game entirely, claiming the TV cameras were too distracting, which led to an automatic loss. The organizers finally relented and allowed the third game to proceed without TV cameras. After that, Fischer's performance improved dramatically. At 29, Fischer, a high school dropout, defeated Spassky to become the world champion, breaking the Soviet Union's 24-year dominance in chess. This victory turned him into an American superhero and sparked a surge of interest in the game, with some chess clubs witnessing their memberships double during the Fischer craze. He became a television sensation, making appearances on various American shows. On The Carson Tonight Show, he amazed the audience by solving a sliding puzzle in just 17 seconds. His genius was undeniable. Fischer reportedly had an IQ of 181, surpassing that of even Albert Einstein. Though he reached the peak of fame, Fischer wasn't very likable. He said things that stirred up trouble, but people ignored it because he was the American Cold War chess hero. In one of his interviews with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, he shared his thoughts on female chess players.
Women are really very good players. I mean, I guess I could give every one of them a knight and still win easily.
Why is this? Do women make bad chess players?
Oh, they're terrible chess players. I mean, some are better than others, you know, but
Why
they
do you
don't
think so?
play in men's tournaments. I don't know why. I guess they're just not so smart.
Would you call yourself a misogynist?
Excuse me, what's the definition of that word?
A woman hater?
No.
No? What do you think of women?
When it comes to chess, not too much.
He had a way of upsetting everyone. After the attacks of 9/11, while giving an interview to a radio station in the Philippines, he shocked people by saying the attacks were wonderful news. I applaud the act. The US and Israel have been killing the Palestinians, just killing them for years. I want to see the US wiped out. His words were hard to believe by the people. Fischer often spoke against Jews, even though he was Jewish ethnically. His comments about America and Jews matched his growing paranoia. He thought the US government was after him and believed that Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad, was hunting him too. His fears kept growing. In 1975, he refused to defend his World Chess Championship title because he thought his rivals were trying to poison his food. He believed his hotel rooms were bugged and feared the Russians wanted to blow up his plane. The brilliant chess mind that once shone so brightly was now lost in a web of fears and hatred. The famous grandmaster was often seen carrying a distinctive blue cardboard box, the contents of which he kept private. One day at a restaurant, Fischer left the box on the table while he went to the restroom. His friend accompanying him took a furtive glance inside the box and discovered a Bible. Fischer appreciated religion for its logical and systematic nature, which appealed to his analytical mind. However, his time with the Worldwide Church of God, led by evangelicist Herbert Armstrong, was brief. He criticized Armstrong's teachings for stifling critical thinking and making followers act like zombies. Eventually, Fischer decided to part ways with the church. His troubled mind was also visible in the way he looked. The formerly active young man, who once used to swim and play tennis to keep in shape for the challenging game of chess, had become hard to recognize. One clear sign of his mental decline was his insistence on removing his dental fillings. He said he preferred to keep his body free from unnatural things, and mentioned a story about a soldier from World War II who had a metal piece in his head that could catch radio waves. The police in California wrongly took him into custody, mistaking him for a thief on the run. He was held for 2 days, and afterward, he authored a book detailing the supposed harsh treatment he endured. Fischer had been absent from the public chess scene for 2 decades, succumbing to his growing insanity. However, financial woes forced his hand. In 1992, he accepted a $5 million rematch proposal against his longtime Russian rival, Spassky, set in Yugoslavia. This decision didn't sit well with the US government as it violated UN sanctions imposed on the war-ravaged nation, prohibiting Americans from engaging in any business there. Despite warnings of a potential 10-year prison sentence, Fischer remained undeterred and emerged victorious in the match. Speculation swirled that Fischer was persuaded to return to chess by his young Hungarian girlfriend, Zita Rashkanani, a fellow chess enthusiast. She reportedly transformed their pen-pal relationship into a romantic one despite their significant 30-year age difference. Fischer, however, insisted that he had no time for women. It is said that he married Miyako Watai, a chess player from Japan, and they lived together there for a short time. It's believed he hoped that marrying a Japanese citizen would allow him to remain in the country as he was avoiding sanctions from the United States. However, his attempt to make Japan his home encountered difficulties. He was detained by officials for using a passport that had been canceled by the US authorities. In his final years, Dr. Magnus Skulason stood vigil by Fischer's bedside as he battled kidney failure. Fischer breathed his last breath on January 17, 2008, with Dr. Dr. Skolason recalling his parting words, "Nothing is as healing as the human touch." This sentiment, coming from someone who shunned social interaction, carried profound weight. It was quite symbolic that Bobby Fischer, deeply connected to the chessboard's 64 squares, passed away at 64 years old. He wished to be laid to rest following Catholic traditions. Writing for a Boy Scouts publication, Fischer once stated, "With talent, study, and a positive attitude, there is no limit to how far you can go." However, he didn't always follow this advice. If Fischer had continued to be part of the chess community, we might have seen a match between him and Garry Kasparov, who are considered two of the best chess players ever, despite being 20 years apart in age. Unfortunately, such a match never took place. Sadly, the person who ultimately defeated Bobby Fischer was himself.